I see Amy Salmina. Amy, if you want to unmute.
Thanks. I was just looking to see, where do you guys post your meeting information, the agenda? I couldn't find it on your website. I actually got a link sent to me from Instagram, so that I saw was posted, but otherwise I can't locate it.
I will tell you, it is a little hard to locate, but if you go to the HACM website, and let me see, I'll share my screen. Oh, I can't share my screen. So if you go to the website and then you go to About Us and Board, within the text that's underneath the Boards of Commissioners, there's a link that says, for the agenda of the next meeting, click here. That is where you get a link to all of the agendas for the different committees and board meetings.
I see board meeting agenda and minutes. Okay. Okay, I see that. All right, no problem.
I agree. It could be a little easier to locate.
That was my question, just because I came to the meeting on site and wanted to make sure that I sort of knew how to navigate and get in. So
Yeah, absolutely.
know what you guys are talking about before I make a public comment. So appreciate that. So thank you so much.
No problem. All right. Is there anyone else online or in person that would like to? I see Alex Soltero. Alex, if you want to unmute, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, it's my first time, so if this is not the right meeting, please stop me. But in regards to policy, I was hoping that the Housing Authority would provide more guidance on clients who are receiving a voucher and working with another agency for, rapid rehousing or rental assistance, having clear guidance on whether or not that type of assistance is allowable, when is it allowable, and what situations we have. Sometimes we have clients that have past rent and then they get the voucher. Sometimes they've had the voucher and then they've had the past rent and then they're trying to get assistance. So just some clarity that's available to all nonprofit agencies that work in this space. Right now, I work with the Housing Resource Center, so I want to make sure that any guidance they get isn't just for them. It's spread throughout all the other agencies. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Zulika, were you able to get all what he's asking for?
Yeah, I got it jotted down. And it is the same for all the agencies, because we just follow the HUD rules under the 24 CFR. And so it's the same no matter what agency the clients are with.
Great.
If you put your email in the chat, we can follow up and send you something in the email.
I would so appreciate that.
Awesome. All right. Is there anyone else online or in the boardroom that would like to make a comment? There's someone who joined on the phone with the last 47116. I believe you press *9 to raise your hand. If you wanted to make a comment, unless that's
someone
Kathleen.
In person.
Okay.
Hi, are you guys able to hear me on Zoom okay?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Cindy Hyatt. I'm the housing lead for Downtown Streets team. My understanding is this meeting is about HACM policy and my comment is about a specific HACM policy. I'm hoping to specifically raise the issue around rent reasonableness and the changes to the procedures on how it's calculated for our county. As a homeless services provider actively working a rapid rehousing program for unhoused community members, we've run into significant issues when trying to collaborate with HACM for the last 5 or 6 months. Specifically, we've had 6 clients lose their opportunities for housing because HACM has deemed the rent to be too expensive, even if it's market rate or under. The new rent reasonableness policy is just not reflective of rent prices, and it's creating unnecessary boundaries to obtaining housing to folks most in need. We have had great collaborations with a collaborative relationship with HACM previously, but the recent flip-flopping on what is considered reasonable rent is not only making it harder for us to do our job, but it's causing issues also for property managers and for landlords. We'd like to request a reevaluation of the rent reasonableness policy so that it aligns with housing first priorities, and that gets us back to a truly collaborative relationship where we are housing our most vulnerable population together.
Great. Thank you for your comment. That policy is not on our agenda today, but we can, we're all going to be kind of going over our plan for how we're going to be addressing things, since we can let you know when that might be coming forward.
I'm sorry, and then if I could also make one comment about that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have a policy for rent reasonableness. We have to follow the guidelines in the HUD 24 CFR, and it strictly tells us exactly how we have to do rent reasonableness. And so that's what we have been implementing is under the HUD guidelines. In the past, the housing authority has some issues, as everyone knows, with the HCV program for not always following all of the guidelines. And I think that's what's kind of causing the confusion on this, because now we are strictly following the HUD rules. So maybe what would need to happen is we could get the the HCV director to talk specifically about this to anybody that's interested, specifically the young lady that made the comment, to give a further explanation, because it's not a housing authority policy, it's the HUD rule for the HCV program.
Can I add something on
Thank
that?
you. Amy, typically we only allow one public comment, but since we're a small group, go ahead.
I appreciate it. Well, my first one was more or less, I just needed to find out like your, where you find your stuff, right? More or less in a public comment. So now I want to make my public comment if that's okay. And what it is that I absolutely agree with the downtown streets team. This is something that I'm concerned with, which is why I attended your last board meeting and I'm attending today. And I didn't know if this was a policy or not, but I know this is something that's affecting your tenants, right? So these things that are coming out are making things extremely difficult for us to place. I manage 1,000 units in particular. You can talk to the downtown streets team and ask anybody in your organization about how many housing people we place that are on Section 8. So what's happening is I have personally denied more than 10 this month because they will not give me the amount that I need that I'm renting out already for those that are non-subsidized, right? So I already have them rented out at non-subsidized, yet they want to deem it lower. I'm not going to go ahead and reduce my rent when I have 20 of the units paying market rent. It doesn't make sense to the property owner, right? So this is something that I'm really struggling with. And I feel like I needed to start being a part of the housing authority and why I want to be here, because my goal is not to displace people from housing or not work with Section 8. It's to figure out what's going on. I have a phone call into the San Francisco HUD as well, because as far as I was aware is that with the payment standards that are produced, those, were already pre-approved. So I was trying to get some clarification from them, as well as I have a meeting tomorrow with one of the gals. I don't know her name and I apologize. Just so that she can go over how the payment standards are working, because we're not understanding how they're reducing some of the stuff. And you'll see our rents and like, okay, we see that you're renting it out, for example, for $2,400, but we're going to allow you $2,150. Well, I'm never going to rent it to you for $2,150 when I have 20 other people paying $2,400 for the same unit. So those people are not getting housed and now they're losing their vouchers. So those are the things that I'm concerned with. So the same thing, I'm so glad that you guys are here listening, and I understand it's not a policy, but thanks so much.
Thank you. So Lucas, so I know you were saying that we could probably have the manager have a conversation. Can I also ask that you talk to the chair to see if there might be an appropriate meeting for the board in the future to have a presentation from staff so we can have a better understanding of what may have changed and how we're better implementing CFR 24 or differently implementing it?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do, since this keep coming up, is for anyone who's interested in having a meeting about this, if you can put your information in the chat, and then I'll get with the HCV director just to do a review to make sure they're following the HUD guidelines, and we'll have a meeting here at the Housing Authority. And then following that meeting, we can give a presentation at whatever the next board meeting is. That way we can also show the board what we've been doing and what was the outcome of the meeting that we had with these particular landlords.
Great. That sounds great. Does that sound good to you, Commissioner Goodwin? Yeah. All right. And welcome, Commissioner Ballesteros.
Yes. And we have Cindy here that wants to add.
I just wanted to add some stuff to my public comment. I think the goal for everybody in this room and on Zoom is of course to like house folks and get folks the housing that they've been searching for years. And so we'd really just like to be able to collaborate together, and we've reached out multiple times in different forums, whether it's landlord forum or via email or calls, in person as well, so that we can just come to an agreement on what is the standard now for the rent reasonableness, because we understand that the Go Section 8 tool is being used. So if we can even just come to an agreement on, or like just understand what the housing authority like settings are, so that we can help to set our clients up for success. If you're setting up the rent reasonableness for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, does it go back 2 years? Does it go back 3 months? Having that kind of clarity could at least help us set our clients up for success.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
All right, is there anyone else online or in person that would like to make a public comment on an item that isn't on this afternoon's agenda?
I think Alex Soltero has his hand up.
I don't see it on my side.
I'm sorry, I have it down on my side.
Oh, okay. There you go.
All right, seeing and hearing none, we'll close public comment and move on to item number 4, which is discussion. And we'll start with the HACM policies overview. And Zulika, I'm looking for you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so this is really our second meeting for the policy committee. And so what we did, James will be on all of the meetings as the Director of Human Resources, and he has produced a list of all of the HECM policies. And then we will have Gabby or James, can you bring that list up?
Yeah, let me see.
I'm sorry, Zulika, to interrupt. A hand went up from the number ending in 7116 right after you started on the telephone. I don't remember if that's *6 or *9 to unmute yourself, but if you were trying to make a public comment, I'll ask you to do that and we'll circle back to that.
Hi, thank you. My name is Audrey Wardwell. I'm with 36 West Properties, and I just wanted to express my concerns with the rent reasonableness as well, and I look forward to getting a better explanation on it. I've experienced the same thing as Amy, and it sounds like Cindy with the streetscapes, where I have been marketing a property at market rate, had Section 8 tenant apply for it, and then you guys come back after the fact and tell them that you won't rent this property for what it's been marketed for. And then I've had to deny them. This has happened on multiple occasions, as well as with lease renewals. So I understand this policy has been in place and implemented by HUD, but the way that it is being implemented now is severely negatively affecting our tenants and keeping them housed. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you for letting me interrupt, Zulika. I just want to make sure that, I know sometimes being on the phone is harder than anyone else. All right, so you were just going to say that James has created a list of policies for us.
Yeah, we have a list of all of the HECM policies, and we have them in chronological order. And so we'll take this list and we'll pull so many policies every meeting for us to just, like for this meeting, since it's the first one, we'll pull the first 4 policies, and then everybody on the policy committee can review those policies. And next time we'll discuss if those policies need to be revised, removed, how they play into the new strategy of HECM. And so to keep it continual, every time we have a meeting, we'll just go to the next 4.
Okay.
So that way you always know what policies we're going to be talking about. Now, the only special policies we'll do is if we have a policy that is coming up for the next upcoming board meeting, we'll have that listed on here as a separate item so that we can talk to the policy committee about it before we go to the board with the policy. So like, for instance, today we have a Narcan policy that we're going to be talking about. Now, I do have another policy that we've been working on. I wanted to have it ready for today, but I don't have it ready. So that one may be on the board agenda, but in the future, we'll have them all lined up to match the policy committee. And so James, did everybody get the lists that he sent out with, it's on the Zoom invite too. Can you pull that up, James, so they can see the list of the policies?
Yes, Gabby, are you able to give me permission to share?
Or Gabby, if you got it, if you can pull it up, because it's on the invite. And the person whose phone number is 7116, their hand's still showing up. I don't know if that's on purpose or if they forgot to lower it. Okay, they just lowered it. So, Gabby, can you pull it up? Oh, no, I see her hand. I don't know, I'm gonna go in there. I don't know if she can hear me. Cause I saw her, move, cause she'll have to make you the host. You're not the host, right, James?
No.
Oh, let's do that.
One moment.
Okay, now I can share. Give me 1 second. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you'll do the current policies first.
Yeah, so on the current policies in the bottom tabs, you guys will see it that you guys have that I sent. Let me click on that. I
I
highlighted
don't think I got this, James.
Okay, I can send it to you.
Okay. You can send it
Um,
later. I can
Also
just
in
look on
the
the screen.
invite too, yours.
Hmm?
It was also added on the invite too, but he can send it to you separate.
Okay.
So what I did for each kind of policy, I also kind of did a corresponding of the policy that we have. So if I click on one of them, it will pull up a Word document of the policy that's in place right now. So altogether, there's about 80 policies listed, which is the reason why we wanted to do 5 each. And originally what I did was I kind of put it in order as the oldest one, which is obviously you can tell 1992 as it was created, which is the confidential and classified info policy. But if I were to click on it, we can kind of, go over it and review with some of the revisions for the next meeting that we have. Any updates that we need to actually do for that. And as we go into the next other meetings, we'll also continue going to the next 5 or so until we cover all 80 of them. Some of these policies are, like I said, outdated that we might not need them at all. And some of them are actually tied together. So that's why I want to make sure that it's important for us to kind of review each one of them.
And then one comment on that too. If you'll notice, the salary program administration policy is the on line number 3. But it's a policy that was did in 2004. The reason why we moved that one, because we want to include it in the first set of policies we look at because it has a severe impact on the financial operations of the authority. And there are some discrepancies in that policy that could potentially hurt the agency and keep an employee from being able to get increases at a regular rate. So we just want to look at that one with everybody and kind of see if we all see these as discrepancies or if we feel like it needs to be a change. So that's why it's out of order.
Okay.
But James, if you will continue.
So the next one we were talking about also in conjunction with the current policies, I did put a handbook like I was mentioning before earlier this year that kind of incorporates the current policies that we have. But I also wanted to kind of review each one of these to make sure that it kind of aligns with the overall mission of HACM. So this is also something that we could look into throughout this policy committee that kind of shortens it from the ones that we currently have. But this is the new handbook I've been working on the past few months that kind of solidifies the current policies we have in place that I wanted us to kind of review before it gets sent to legal to be reviewed as well and approved. And then in the middle, which is the new proposed policies that Zalika was referencing on, is the new Narcan administration policy. So recently, dealing with our clients in the communities that we serve, we are finding a lot of people with opioids overdose and having that our staff out there, I wanted to kind of have this training completed by all employees, including property management, anyone in the field. So in the event that they actually encounter someone in the that has an overdose, they are able to administer this policy. Even though the policy kind of covers the Good Samaritan law, I wanted to make sure that we're safeguarding ourselves from a agency standpoint that will also protect the agency, but also the employee who is administering that Narcan, which is the reason why I want to kind of bring it up to the policy committee to kind of review before it gets sent to the board.
Could you click on it, James, so that they can see it?
Sure.
Well, first, before we even do that, we kind of did the overview, which was item number 8, but do any of the board members have any questions about the overview or how we're gonna move forward with the committee before we go into the Narcan policy?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Goodwin?
I do not either. Thank you.
I just have one question. So in column D, it indicates personnel policies. So the 80 or so policies that we're looking at, do they all fall within the realm of personnel policies, or are there other designations as well?
No, it all forms in the personnel. I did that as an extra link just in case these links here don't work. I just did as a safety precaution for you when I was sending it out.
Okay.
So if I were to click on it, it just falls into a folder.
Okay. And so in terms of policies on in other areas, will the committee be looking at those as well at some point, or what's the staff's thinking on that?
All of the policies are labeled as personnel policies. So if it's a policy for something in property management that involves the employee, it's just gonna be a personnel policy. Other policies that you're talking about, probably maybe
Financial
like,
policies,
yeah, stuff like that. That if we have any of those, which we are working on some, then we will have them specific to the department. But that'll be like an internal control policy, or maybe we might do a standard operations procedural handbook, stuff like that. You'll look at those. But most of the policies that govern the other parts of the agency have already been approved before. It's a few of them going to have to be changed because of the new HOTMA rules. So those will come to the policy committee and the board as the HOTMA rules are finalized, like the tenant selection policy. It tells you how the tenants are selected for the multifamily units. The administration policy is for the HCV program. But when we do those, we'll add them. They'll be their own item number on the agenda.
Okay. And like, what about our conflict of interest policy? Like,
personnel.
It's for both board and staff kind of thing. So it's somewhere in this list. It's probably one we've updated more frequently because I know we have to turn those into the board of supervisors and stuff.
Yeah, it'll be on this personnel policy list.
Okay.
Yeah, on that conflict of interest, Erie, just kind of to talk about that there. Yeah, I think the one I did create another one just because the board has something. They're not technically an employee of HACM, and they just represent the board. So the verbiage on the actual current policy reflects as employee rather than a commissioner of the board, which is the reason why I wanted to do that separate. So I do have a policy that we'll be adding to the policy committee before review.
Okay.
And again, those policies will just have their own identification under discussions to show that it's different from the regular personnel policies that we normally discuss.
Okay. And then like the PVV policy, which is, I think, to be developed, that would be one of the ones that falls under like a special designation on the agenda.
Yes.
All right. So at some point, like, there may be another, would it fall under the proposed policies tab, or would there be other tabs in this workbook that had things like internal control policies, housing development policies, kind of in different categories of work?
Well, the PBV policy would go under the new and proposed policies. But as far as the agency policies to actually perform the job duties, we could just do another tab to put like program, because that'll be program policies. So HCB will have the administrative plan, which is their program policy, and then the tenant selection plan. So we just add a tab for that.
Okay.
But those are totally different. And a lot of those are really it seemed like we have a lot to talk about in those policies, but basically we just have to follow whatever HUD guidelines is and whatever they give us as the final act.
Mhm.
Because we'll have maybe 2 or 3 items we have a little discretion on, but the rest of it, they say you must do it. So we just have to adopt it really. But we can go over all that when we pull those particular policies up.
Great. Okay, those are all my questions. Is there any member of the public that has a question or a comment on item 4A, which is the HACM policies overview?
No.
All right, seeing none, we can move to the Narcan administration policy.
Okay, James, if you want to speak on that.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning earlier, this is, I don't know, can everyone see it?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So it's kind of just a basic overview, right, of the administration policy. It kind of make sure that, you know, HACM also recognizes the importance of, you know, having our staff equipped with it just in case that they do have to kind of save a life of an overdose if they actually come to that with it. The policy does cover, you know, who's authorized to administer. There is training that's going to be involved. And that was one of my reasons that prompted me to actually develop this policy, was because the fact that from a safeguard standpoint, we wanted to make sure that everyone that is going to be able to administer is trained and has a certification on it. And then where it's going to be stored at, and then how to recognize an overdose. So that's all part of the training, which is the reason why I want to incorporate that in the policy itself. Additionally, it does have the protocol on how to administer it, as you guys can see here. And then the kind of step-by-step, and then documentation after the Narcan is administered from a liability standpoint as well, just to make sure we record every single detail that's going to be logged in and kept within HR. And then maintaining confidentiality, compliance, and it also will be kind of updated throughout as soon as we get updates from the state mandates. And then the bottom of it is kind of a receipt of a statement of acknowledgement from each employee that will sign it, to make sure that they understood it correctly and that they got the training they need to actually administer the Narcan. But other than that, though, that's kind of like the basic overview of the Narcan policy that I am proposing. Any questions?
I have a question. James, do all the employees are willing to have this training, or is there maybe 1 or 2 that don't want to do it?
So from what I hear, the consensus is that a lot of the, especially the maintenance employees, are the ones that are requesting the Narcan. I haven't had anyone be objective to it. However, they're not required, they're not mandated to actually participate in this in administering it, because I do know that there's some people are not comfortable with it. So it is a voluntary thing, but I want this one that if they do decide to do it, have this as a safeguard tool for us.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Goodwin, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, do the caretakers in of the different facilities, the apartments, are they required to take this?
No, only because they are contracted with HACM. This is going to be primarily for the property managers and the maintenance employees.
Okay.
Okay, so reading through it for me, the designated personnel was kind of something that popped out. So I guess it's similar to Commissioner Ballesteros' question, but, you know, are we designating specific categories of employees as those that need to receive the training? Not necessarily that they have to then administer the medication if needed, but that, like, if you are a property manager, you're required to participate in training on Narcan administration. Because it says authorized personnel and then designated personnel. So I wasn't sure who was designated.
So I'm sorry.
I was saying where it say designated personnel, you
Mhm.
probably just need to change it to authorized, Jane, because all other property managers might not want to do it.
Okay. I'll make that.
And then the training and certification, do we have any sense of, like, how long a certification is good for? Is there like an actual like certification program? Um,
So I partner with Monterey County and Health Department, and they actually have a video that we actually give the employees to watch.
mhm,
After that, they watch it, they get the acknowledgement that they understood it, and then they get these flyers as well, and then they kind of sign off on it, and then a certificate is generated. It's not a
Okay.
system per se; it's just
Mhm.
kind of manually entered, but the acknowledgement that they watched the video and completely understand what is asked for them to complete and do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it indicates regular refresher training. So should the policy actually like indicate like what we mean by regular refresher, or like it also doesn't, I guess the policy doesn't speak to the agency's responsibility on our side. So like the policy, the agency is responsible for, providing the training, and we will do so on an annual basis or whatever. Like some of those things seem missing from the policy.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
You probably want to put on that a third party because the agency is working with the county, so the county will be providing all of the training. And
Mhm.
if they update, then they'll let us know that they've updated training materials. Then we'll let the staff know that the training materials has been updated.
Yeah. And then when I first started reading it, it indicated it's a policy that outlines the guidelines and procedure for the administration. So I guess for me, I was imagining like the policy section, some of it seems mixed up with the procedures for administration, which is really more process, right? So like the recognizing, like our policy is that we will, oh, hello? Oh, my screen just went black for a second. Um, our policy is that we're going to have authorized personnel who have completed training. We're going to make sure they have access to training, that we're going to make sure they have access to the medications. And then we have an minute. So for those that have been trained, here's what you need to do. If you have it, so I guess it starts kind of like on D, or I guess E. So the administration protocol is more of like the procedures for administration is a whole separate heading, separate from the policy, I imagine.
I see
And
what
that might be persnickety, but because all the stuff underneath it, because also the procedure is then you need to do the documentation, and you need to the confidentiality or some of that might still be in the policy. I don't know.
Okay, I'll take a look at that as well.
And then in terms of reviews and revisions to the policy, do we have a standard for like regular review and, of our policies? It seems like there should be on your spreadsheet, it said this was last adopted, on one of them was like 92 or something like that. So the
Yeah.
policy itself should have, adopted date, revision date, kind of on there. If someone was looking at them, like there you have it down in your footer there.
Right. Yeah.
The revision, the policies are normally revised whenever HUD make a change.
Mhm.
Most of this stuff just goes along with whatever the industry is doing.
Mhm.
Some of these policies that's still on here that's really old. The agency used to have public housing. So
Mhm.
they have some policies that was specific to public housing. And when they changed from public housing, they never retired
Extended.
those policies. And so
Mhm.
that's why they probably still on there from like 2015 or 8 or something like that. Because there wasn't a lot of changes that happen often for public housing under HUD.
Mhm.
The reason that you're going to see so many policy changes this year is because of the HOPMA final rule. So normally what I've seen is they don't have like a date to say, every 3 years a policy have to be updated or every 5 years a policy have to be updated. It's just whenever new revisions are given out,
Mhm.
then it's updated to match whatever is being sent down from Washington or the HUD office. But I think it'd be good if we did say, I don't know, that we're gonna review them every so often, because even if HUD doesn't make a change, some of them do, the little discretionary items that we have, we might
Mhm.
make a strategic change at the business, and so we wanna match that. So
Mhm.
maybe like every 3 years or something, just look at the policies. And I truly believe we have way too many policies. 80 policies is kind of ridiculous to have.
Mhm.
I think that once we look through all these policies and make them mirror the agency as it is today, and with all of the changes from HUD, that we'll drastically reduce that number. And so then it'll be easier to make all the revisions in the future. Because if you do it every 3 years, or if you have them on steps, like, 10, these 10 did be revised in 2026, then the next 10 in 27, it won't be so much of a burden. And then two, we trying to make them into an employee handbook.
Mhm.
So we'll have a policy and have the employee handbook that'll be looked at. Because we do a MOU every 3 years.
Mhm.
So I think you need to look at the policies before you go into the MOU. Because, I'm learning more about the union since I've been here. And some of these policies, if we had looked at them before we did negotiations, I think negotiations would have been a little different.
Hmm.
So I think they need to be reviewed before you have your next union negotiation.
I mean, essentially too, Yuri, I think that we should also, I mean, and it's like, if I overstep, I'm sorry, let me know. But I think that from a personnel standpoint, we should be looking at all the policies each year, just in case that there is updates that do need to be needed. That's what I do on my end. And then like going to what Zalika said, we could just update and revise as we needed, but bring it to the policy committee's attention as well.
Mhm.
Well, and when I was saying the HUD updates, James, I was including you too, because see,
Oh,
we get all of the marketing materials and all of the rule updates through our emails. So they'll send us something and say, such and such has changed. You got to have it implemented by December 31st. So we immediately go grab whatever policies pertain to that, try to work in those revisions, and then bring them to the board well in advance before whatever the HUD due date is. And
Mhm.
same for human resources. Sharma and places like that send James information. EEOC has changed this, now the minimum wage, if it's this will have to happen. And so that's what kind of pushes him to do a revision,
Mhm.
so that any immediately needed revisions are always done and they're in time for the agency to be in compliance.
Okay. All right. Well, I do think it's important that there be some thought or strategy around regular review, so that that is like an expectation that we are, yes, we're responding when we need to what's coming down from HUD. We're responding what's coming down from like changes in labor law, and maybe it's some of the policies that aren't in here yet. But we also, every 3 years, or every policy is looked at least once every 3 years, or whatever cycle we determine, so we can make sure it's in alignment with current practice and laws, and that date that it says that it was last revised or reviewed or adopted by the board continues to be updated. Since we are a policy board, like, we need to make sure our policies are up to date, and that we are regularly saying, yes, this is how we do this. And sometimes a policy might just say, we follow whatever rule HUD tells us to do
Yeah.
on this, kind of thing. So,
No, I agree. I think we should. I just think we need to stagger it so that before we go into union negotiations,
mhm,
I thoroughly looked at all of the policies. Because
yeah,
I think it's important from a negotiation standpoint and from the strategic vision of the agency to know what policies are in place and what changes we do or don't want to make before we go into that negotiation.
agreed. All right. Okay, so is there any member of the public that would like to make a comment or ask a question related to the Narcan administration policy? All right. Seeing and hearing none, we'll close that. So, what is James and Zulika, what's your thought for this policy based on today's discussion? You gonna bring
I think we
it
just need-
forward? What's, Is it coming to the next board meeting or?
No, I
with the,
think we need to look at it some more
yeah,
and bring it to the next policy committee meeting and then take it to the board.
Okay, does sound good to you, Commissioner Ballesteros, Commissioner Goodwin?
Yes,
And James, you'll pull up the list again for the current policies.
yes.
Thank you. When we have our next policy meeting, the ones that's highlighted in yellow, those are the ones that we would like to discuss.
Okay, great.
And then each meeting, we'll just go down to the next 5, to the next 5, like that, so that we can be on track. Unless something happens and we feel like we need to stay on a particular policy longer. And then with some of these policies, we may want to make revisions. We won't be able to take it directly to the board after we review it, because it might have to go to the union so that we can discuss it with them first, the revisions we want to make, and then get a final policy to bring to the board.
Okay, and is there any expectation of legal counsel review the policies before or after adoption by the board, or what's?
So we always get them reviewed before.
Okay,
Before they come to the board meeting, they review for by legal counsel.
okay, great. And then, like, say for instance, the confidentiality classified data policy. If you're recommending edits to that, are we going to be seeing like a redlined version of that policy when we click on this link, or is it just going to be the policy as is? And we just come in with any comments that we.
Well, that was one question that I had. I think as to not kind of guide a person to what we want to change it to. We have a very distinct makeup on this board. I have an outsider view from being out of state. You know, Miss Francine is a resident, so it's a lot of different ways to look at them. If it's okay with the board, I would like everybody to just look at the regular policy that's in place and make your notes, and then all us come back together so that everybody's perspective can be taken into account. But if you want me and James to go through and redline it to what we think and present that, we can do that too. But I just thought that maybe we might get a lot more feedback and, you know, things that we just are not thinking of if you kind of look at it as is first. But it's whatever you ladies would like to do.
Commissioner Ballesteros or Goodwin, do you have a opinion or perspective on that? You're on mute, Kathy.
that sounds good. That sounds like a good idea.
Kathy, you're still on. Thank you, Francine. You're still on mute. No, you're muted, honey.
I'm not on my screen, I'm not.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, I just wanted to, I had a quick question. You know, for the policies we're gonna review next month, will we get a copy of the policy or it'll be sent to us on the, you know, when Gabriela sends us the meeting agenda?
You can click right from this spreadsheet and go straight to the policy.
Okay, I got it. All right.
But, you know, like I said, I'm not trying to put in an undue burden on you. I know you all are very busy, have things to do. So if you want me to just redline them with whatever the regulations and whatever I think, we can do that and then discuss it. It's whatever makes it easier.
I mean, I guess from my perspective, I would rather be responding to what you think the policy should be at this time. So if you open it up and you're like, this is totally not what we do, or this is like not in alignment with our current MOU, and here's how we need to change it to bring it into current practice or up to the law, like I'd rather see what that looks like and be able to say, okay, like we know we're starting from that point, and then be able to bring in our individual local perspectives or resident perspectives versus like, you know, we look at it and you come in and you're like, here's all the things that we know we need to change already. And I've spent all my time thinking about all the things I think you need to change. Versus just
I agree, Commissioner Anderson, because we're not at the agency. We're just, you know, she gives us, like Zalika will give us her, you know, well, I guess her opinion or her experience and help us out. To understand it.
I appreciate all of the confidence and trust, and you know I'm very transparent and tell you why I think whatever. So I will go through all of them and put my notes on, and then so I'll send you guys an email, And it'll have the policies on there with the notes that it's come from me or James. Because like, for instance, that confidentiality and classified information data policy, I already know that that's gonna have to be scrapped because we are doing so much virtual stuff and things they weren't even thinking about back in 1992. The cybersecurity and stuff like that. So all of that's gonna have to be implemented into the confidentiality policy for us to be on track moving forward. And then James, when you add the list on here for the program policies, we can put it by department. So we'll have HCV, administrative, plan and whatever policies it covers. Multifamily is a different section of the housing. It'll have those plans on there. And we're gonna put it by the program. So it'll be HCV, multifamily, USDA, for the farm labor. But we can put a little note on the side so you'll know exactly what we're talking about instead of listing all of the different properties. So you'll be more familiar with the HUD lingo, how they explain these different properties. And then finance, of course, I have its own area too.
Great. So I have a
We have
question.
a lot coming up because of hot month. So look, how the little kids do, we got a lot of them coming. We gotta have them changed for the end of the year.
Well, it seems like you guys have already done a ton of work just in the formation of this committee to pull all of these policies together into one place and make clear notations of their last, when they were created and all that kind of stuff. So like I feel like from a board perspective, this is a huge step forward to know like what policies am I supposed to be governing around. So thank you for all of the work that you've done to bring us to this place in this committee. And I'm a total policy dork, so I'm super excited to get into the individual policies with you all and make sure everything is in alignment with what reality is. All right, so I believe that brings us to item number 5, which is our commissioner comments. I've made mine. Commissioner Goodwin or Commissioner Ballesteros, did you have any comments this afternoon?
I just want to say thank you for all the information and my apologies again for being, I couldn't get in. It was on my part. Thank you.
And I wanted to thank everybody for all their extended hard work. I know that this took hours to put together, I'm sure. And thank you for all that you guys are doing to bring us up to date. Thank you.
Yeah. And I also wanted to thank the members of the public who took the time to join us this afternoon and raise some concerns. And I'm happy that we were able to come up with an approach to providing the information and engaging in the discussion with you all. So if there's nothing else from the team, Julika or James.
No, thank you.
All right, we will call this meeting adjourned at 3:19 p.m. and see you all again for policy committee on what's our next policy committee?
Let's see.
Today is the 12th, so I want to say
Let me say the second one.
10th, July 10th at 2:30 p.m.
Yep.
Sounds good.
And Hood will actually be here then for the compliance review too.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, thank you.